Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. I am Daryl Grove and I'm joined by the yin to my yang, the Conte to my Payet, the Stanku to my Stanchu. It's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. That's all I've ever wanted, was to be Stanchu or Stanku, depending on the situation.
I think I'd rather be Stanchu.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, he won the penalty in today's game. We are here with our very first Euro 2016 review. Hosts France beat visitors, I guess, Romania 2-1 in the opening game of Euro 2016. Taylor, we are underway. We are now officially a two-tournament podcast.
Hooray-ish.
I mean, after that game, I feel pretty good.
Yeah, right? I mean, a good showing from Romania and Romania's fans. Obviously, a good showing from France and France's fans. And Didier Deschamps to get the win in the debut game of Euro 2016.
And we are going to break it down for you.
Yeah.
Oh, are we going to break it down? We have seen some things I don't think we've seen reported elsewhere at time of recording. Yeah?
I think you are correct.
Okay.
That said, we haven't really seen any other reports.
Yeah.
So we're just going to say, turn a blind eye and say that we haven't seen anything else. And thus, we did it ourselves.
So we think we know why it was 0-0 at half-time, why France seemed to kind of struggle to get anything going. I mean, there were a few sort of chances for Giroud from set pieces and crosses, right? But they really couldn't get much of a passing game going or penetrate with through balls.
Right.
And it seemed to be all about Romania's defensive system.
Yes.
Which has two parts to it.
It does.
Part the first,
they
kind of stepped high to France when France had the ball in their defensive end trying to build out. They stepped high, stepped close, but didn't get too close, right? There wasn't like crazy pressure where they'd jump on you and give France the chance to get around them. They just got close to them, high up the field, and then stood off.
Yeah.
So France couldn't really connect anything.
But there was like really early in the first 10 minutes or so, France had 2 or 3 throw-ins in their own defensive third.
Yeah.
And there were 8 Romanian players in like one quarter of the field, completely blocking it off. But again, not overcommitting, but standing off and blocking basically passing lanes so that France really couldn't do anything but kick it long back to Romania's back four.
Yeah.
And then Romania built from the back.
And the other thing we saw,
which is fascinating,
amazed us. Okay, so we were watching Romania's back line, just seeing what they were doing.
They're like little fish.
They were like little fish. They were like the epitome of the cliched, well-organised defence, quote unquote. We saw the back four of Sapamaru, Kirikesh, Grigori, and Rats moving in actual unison.
Right.
As in, when they moved to the right, they all moved to the right at the same time, pretty much without looking at each other. Then they stepped forward at the same time. They turned. They would all turn in unison. It looked to me like a hoedown. A line dance, right? Everybody knows the moves.
You could say that like maybe they thought the Euros were synchronized swimming, and so they like had just been practicing that. But what really threw me off, so I mean, it was so obvious to see because of how in sync they were.
Yeah.
But I couldn't figure out how they were doing it because Kirikesh was the one who kept checking, I think, to make sure that the offside line was being kept, to make sure that people were roughly in their position.
But his mouth wasn't moving.
But we didn't see him yelling, we didn't see him gesturing, and we couldn't figure it out. And so Mr. Grove, my lovely colleague, pointed out that there must be something else that they're tracking.
Well, if you're not talking to each other and you're all making the same movements, that can't even just be practice because you've all got to make the same decision at the same time. Unless there was like invasion of the body snatchers and these were pod people in Romania's defence. Possible? Maybe.
Possible. It's a risky strategy.
So we rewatched and trying to figure this out because we wanted to bring this to you on the podcast.
Yep.
We figured out there has to be a reference point that they are moving in relation to. So we kept watching the defenders to see if it was one of them. And they're so synchronized that it's not that one of them moves first. That's how synchronized they are. So unless there's some sort of telepathy, or you propose the idea of the school of fish type thing?
Yeah, that's why I said they're little fish.
How do the fish communicate when they move in, is it schools or shoals? Schools, right?
I think, just positive vibes. I really don't know. Something about electromagnetism is what he says without really knowing. Basically, that's the answer I would give if I were to have kids and they were to ask me how fish move in sync. I'd just be like, electromagnetism. Well, let's move on, shall we?
I will guarantee that we have a marine biologist listening to our show, right?
Probably punching their phone out of frustration.
Let's hope typing a polite email with some information.
That would work as well. But
so it wasn't a defensive reference point. Then we thought maybe the ball. Maybe it's the ball, but that seems to move too fast. And also, if you're only watching the ball, you're not watching anything else. You don't know what it is. And then we saw number 8,
Pintilli,
defensive midfielder Pintilli, sitting in front of them and moving, and they all moved where Pintilli moved.
So every time
was it, right?
The first time we really caught it was he steps forward about 3 yards.
Yep.
And within a half second, all four of the back line step forward 3 yards, and they all step in the direction that he steps. So it's not just that everybody moves because he's moved forward, so the back line moves up to kind of keep that offside line tight.
Right.
It's that they move in like directions in specific relationship to where Pintilli moves. So you have one tuck in, one move wide, one goes inside, one goes outside, and then it keeps happening throughout the first half.
So Pintilli is the hoedown leader. Or Pintilli is the capo, maybe, if you want to make like a fan analogy.
Sure.
Right? He's telling them where to go, what to do.
The main fish? The electromagnetic fish?
There's no main fish. That's not how it works, I don't think. Again, marine biologist really angry.
Or fish listeners. You never know. We kept seeing that. We kept seeing that essentially he did a very good job of staying in between those two center backs. Occasionally,
and ahead of them.
He would drift a little bit. And honestly, the times that he would drift in the first half when he would try to be aggressive and step forward and basically cut out a pass.
Yeah.
Twice he did that. Twice they got past him, and those were two of France's best opportunities.
Yes.
And so basically every time he left that space in the first half, France were able to get something. Every time he didn't, they didn't.
Anytime we had a Finding Nemo moment, the rest of the fish were in trouble.
That's right. Don't you take my fish references. You didn't buy into electromagnetic fish.
I'm making them
I'll
better.
have none of it.
I'm making your fish references
and
better.
maybe we'll tweet this out, but there was the great still shot that we got where it was basically Romania were trying to force France into their own like kind of corner, basically to either concede a throw in deep, concede a corner kick deep, or boot it long. And you can see that there are basically 4 Romanian attackers in a wave pressuring with number 5, Hoban, behind.
Yeah.
Then behind him is number 8, Pintilli, and then you have the back 4.
It was like two systems, right? There's the 4-1, which is with Pintilli leading it from in front of the defence, and there's the 1-4 with Hoban leading the pressure from behind the attackers doing their defensive work. Right. It is genuinely a really well-organised system. And then when you watch the two centre-backs, Kirikesh and Grigore, Giroud is like sort of bouncing between them, and they're doing a great job of not even. It's weird that there's not as much communication as I normally see from a really well organised defence, right? But it's more like one of them has always got him, and the other one is always checking that the other one's got him, so they're looking at each other, so that if needed, they can then step across to cover something else and be certain that someone is still covering Giroud.
Yeah, it's fascinating because it's not just like, okay, you've got him, I'll go sprint over and try to cover something. It's they track him in between them in either left or right direction, and then what will happen, is if a French player runs through, so say it's Dimitri Payet gets through on that left-hand side, Kirikesh would slide over, leave Giroud, but he's marked up by Grigore, and so then they've got him covered. Vice versa, Kirikesh would stay with Giroud, Grigore would go over to Mark Griezmann if he came through. So they have that kind of break-off system when it's necessary.
But for all that defending and all that defensive cohesion and organisation, it's France that score first, right?
Yes.
In the second half, around about the 57th minute, I believe, Giroud scores off a corner kick.
And this is where we went back and watched a few times to figure out what exactly happens.
Yeah.
Because it is a corner. I think it's played short, and then Payet plays it in. But the way this corner comes about, it's a great shot from Pogba from the top of the box.
Yeah.
It's a great
save, right?
block, or it's a save. I forget which one. It's a kick save, I think, that goes out of bounds to the corner. And then we were trying to figure out why he was so wide open. And you go back and look, and basically to start the second half, Romania dropped into a more standard 4-2-1. Or 4-2-3-1, excuse me. 4-2-1 would definitely not work. 4-2-3-1. And because of that, you have Pintilli basically over on Romania's right-hand side, more or less man-marking Blaise Matuidi.
Right.
But because he's moved out of that central position, had he been standing in front of those two center-backs, he blocks that shot and he steps to Pogba.
Yeah.
But he's moved over. Now Pogba can run through and shoot unobstructed.
And so they win the corner. The cross comes in. And it seems like keeper Tato Rushanu makes a horrible error, right? Because he goes up for the ball with Giroud, and it looks like he just somehow misjudges it, misses it, does not get his hands properly to it. I think he maybe touches it with his left hand, and then Giroud gets the back of his head to it. But there's more to it than that. Isn't there, Taylor Rockwell? Because you saw it first.
Yeah, so it's and I explained it, like I said, that it just seemed like it maybe just hit Giroud's head.
Yeah.
And then when you go back and watch it, essentially Giroud, he does jump straight up, which is why it's not a foul, because he's not colliding with the goalkeeper. But when he goes up, as you would do, you kind of would use your arms to create that upward momentum. And so he leads up with his arms, and then you're going to spread wide to get your head as high as you can. And when that elbow comes across, I don't think it's intentional, but it hits the goalkeeper's right arm. So by the time
in the forearm,
right, and so by the time the ball is there where the goalkeeper usually would have caught it, his right arm is actually across his left arm, and there's no way he's catching that ball, and he doesn't. And instead, the ball catches Giroud's head.
And we paused it, and we did like the mental experiment of if you adjusted Tato Rushanu's arm to where it should be, that ball's safely in the goalkeeper W shape. And like resting gently in his hands,
the goalkeeper W shape,
and that corner kick is over. Right, that attack is over. But because Giroud gets his forearm into Tato Rushanu's forearm, he misses it completely, and then it hits Giroud, and then it goes in.
It has only just occurred to me that if we had somebody photographing us recording a podcast, it would be so confusing by the end of it because we make so many weird.
We are very
gestures.
expressive.
Right? Daryl just recorded that with a W above his head, and it absolutely looks like you're doing some sort of like heavy metal salute.
When we started a YouTube channel and started putting podcasts on there, we got a couple of suggestions that we should record the show as video and put it out. And my thought was, no, because not enough happens in the studio. But I realize I'm even making hand gestures as I do it now. I imagine it might be annoying to watch, to be honest.
Actually, listeners, Daryl is just permanently doing jazz hands and spirit fingers all at once. All at once. When he's not doing something else, that's his resting phase. Anyway, so yes, it's a goal for France, 1-0.
Tato, just to prove that this definitely happens.
Oh, that's right, yes.
Tato Rushanu is running to the ref, like slapping his forearm, saying, "This happened, this happened."
Yes.
The ref's like,
you can see it in the background when Giroud is off celebrating.
The ref was more like, learn to catch. Tato Rushanu's, no, he pushed me.
Or learn to come out with a little bit more strength.
There is that. I mean, there is that you've got to expect some contact with opposition players, right? Goalkeepers are not basketball players who can expect to never ever be touched, right? Because I find that frustrating when I play basketball, that I can't defend the way I defend in soccer.
Yes.
So, you maybe just have to be a bit stronger than Giroud and just get there first.
Yes. Speaking of needing to get there first, it goes from 1-0 to 1-1 very quickly because Patrice Evra fails to get there first.
It's what, the 65th by the time the penalty kick goes in, so it's probably a couple of minutes before. There's a ball that bounces in the box, and it's Nicolae Stanciu, the younger of the Stanks, who essentially gets there fast and heads it ahead of himself and then chases it. And I think Patrice Evra has come over not realising that Stanciu's going to do that, and so like steps to the ball like maybe he's going to head it, and leaves his foot in, and then Stanciu runs straight into it.
And we like slow-mo screen, like image by image, still by still went through it. And to steal a line from Talladega Nights that our former co-host Albert Otati was a big fan of, Patrice Evra absolutely has the face of, this is not good, I'm flying through the air right now. Because he totally is like, oh no, like I am about to collide with this person.
His hands go up, his eyes get really wide, like, oh.
And then he flops over, and I think an attempt to be like, he hit me. Like, look at me on the ground. Isn't that a shame for me? Oh, you're still pointing to the spot? That's a shame.
And it's a penalty kick. And it is +1 for those who are sort of keeping score. Because there were two types of previews for France, right? There was, they have a veteran fullback in Patrice Evra, or they have a 35-year-old fullback, and he's there for the taking in Patrice Evra. This is +1 for the latter people, right?
So 1-1.
Yeah, Stanku, the other Stanku, number 19, steps up, dispatches the penalty expertly, right in the corner. It's 1-1. It is looking like France are going to finish their open the tournament hosting a kind of disappointing tied game until in the 89th minute.
89th minute, yeah.
89th minute. Dimitri Payet receives a pass from N'Golo Kanté. He's surrounded by 4 Romanian players. He takes a very clever touch with his right foot into the only bit of space available, then opens up, swings his left foot at it. Well, that makes it sound less accurate than it was, right? Calibrates his laser. Top corner.
Yep.
Absolute top corner. Dimitri Payet. He's the hero. It's the 89th minute. He's won the game 2-1 for France.
He has. Really quickly, though, we went back and watched this one as well. Not surprisingly. It's a recurring theme for the show. And again, you have that back four.
We should retitle the show. We went back and watched it.
Yeah. 40 or 50 times. And again, you have Pintilli sitting in front of that back four, except that what he does is he sees that no one is on N'Golo Kanté. He's moved out wide to support Sagna, who has the ball. Sagna drops to Kanté. And Pintilli sprints to try to shut down Kanté. Kanté plays the ball in behind to Payet. That's why Payet has that room to take a touch across that back four and shoot.
Yeah.
If Pintilli holds back, maybe he blocks it. And if Pintilli is, an eighth of a second faster reacting?
Yeah. So we freeze frame this as Payet shoots. Pintilli is already lunging in at him. He must land on Payet's foot.
Yes.
He must. And so, he is there milliseconds. On our TV, it's one gentle press of the skip forward a second button, which isn't even a second. It's much less than that,
yes,
right?
yeah.
It's one press of the button away from blocking Payet's shot. If he hadn't gone chasing N'Golo Kante, he would have got there. So I'm not even saying he was wrong, though. I'm just more saying it's important that he stays in front of the back four.
It's essentially the times that he wasn't there for his own fault or somebody else's fault.
Yeah.
That's when opportunities presented themselves for France.
Yeah, I don't want to at all imply that he had a bad game. I looked at his stats. He had 4 out of 6 tackles were successful. He had 4 interceptions, 5 ball recoveries.
Right.
Those are N'Golo Kante for Leicester-style stats.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely. If not for France, yes. And then, Mr. Grove, final point that I think you deserve credit for is you noticed something about maybe some of the French players and how these goals came to be.
Oh, so I think it is a good good work with his substitutes by Didier Deschamps, right? So France start with that front three, Payet, Giroud, Griezmann. By the end, Griezmann has come off to be replaced by I want to say, as fast and maybe a bit sort of trickier Kingsley Coman.
On the day, at least, yes.
Who caused a lot of trouble on the right with a lot of sort of old-fashioned just stand with the ball at your feet and just feint one way and feint the other. There's one move where he just feints left, feints right, and the 2 defenders open up, and then he just sort of goes, all right, and just walks through the middle.
You sure?
As if he'd parted the seas. Right, yeah. And then there's also, he moves Payet back into midfield and gets Anthony Martial comes on. So you have wingers in Coman and Martial, you still have Giroud, and you have the creative juices of Dimitri Payet in the middle, which I would say caused more trouble for that defensive midfield of Romania, and also literally had him in the spot to score. That's why he's there. Yeah. It's because Deschamps had used him in creative midfield instead of as one of the wide guys for the last 20 minutes or so.
Exactly. So well done to Deschamps, well done to France, really well done to Romania, because it was a pretty exciting game. Definitely some periods of inactivity, but generally overall a good game for the start of a tournament.
I was expecting to be slightly bored or at least uninspired by Romania's performance. I really thought they would just come and do some sort of like everybody behind the ball type thing. The fact that they've come with a really interesting defensive system. I can't say that I've ever seen this hoedown defensive shape before where everybody moves in unison. Makes me... I guess it's kind of nerdy, right? But I'm excited for their next game because I want to see if they do it again, right?
Yes.
So when that game comes around, we'll take a look.
And you had a prediction about Romania's coach, right? Like when we were doing the previews, is it Iordănescu? Is that how you pronounce his name? I just want to say, I'm just adding that from now on, I think instead of saying well-organized defense, we should just have to say a Iordănescu-esque defense. And that's how we know then.
Well, there's a reason he's got military titles, right?
Exactly. So that was day 1 of Euro 2016. But day 2 offers a lot more Euro 2016.
Yep. As of Saturday morning, we are in maximum Euro 2016 mode, right?
Yeah.
It's 3 games a day, at least to begin with.
Yep.
Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. US Eastern Time. I've no idea what West Coast people are going to do with Euro 2016. Wake up early, I guess.
Drink a lot of coffee or drink a lot of coffee all night and not go to sleep.
6 o'clock is too late in the morning to be worth staying up on.
I don't know. Time is relative to me at this point.
I think time's always relative, isn't it?
Yeah, but especially so when international soccer tournaments are underway.
I see.
Tournaments plural.
So 9 a.m. Eastern on ESPN, am I correct? It is Albania, Switzerland, the second game in Group A. So these are in France and Romania's group.
I'm going to call this the cultural anthropology derby, if you are into that, as I am. Because in Albania's 23-man squad, you have 11 players with ties to Kosovo. You have 4 in Switzerland's squad. In Albania's squad, you have 11 players born in Switzerland.
Right.
So you have a lot of connections all over the place, including brother versus brother.
Yes, it's Granit Xhaka, plays for Switzerland. And what's the name of the Xhaka who plays for Albania?
Talent Xhaka, I believe.
Talent Xhaka. Also, very talented man, from what I understand. He plays for Borussia Mönchengladbach.
I believe so, and played for Swiss national team at the youth level. He did. And then chose to play for Albania at senior level.
And Granit Xhaka, a new Arsenal signing. So I know Arsenal fans, there'll be a lot of eyes on him thinking, what's he all about?
I think you are correct.
What else are we looking for from these two teams? What else do we know about them? We did our whole Group A preview, right?
I'm going to guess we're going to see a 4-2-3-1 at least some point, maybe twice.
Maybe from both
this
teams,
game, yeah.
I heard Albania's is more like a more defensive 4-5-1.
That makes sense. I believe my prediction for Albania going forward was that Sokol Tsikalechi would be the one to get a goal if and when Albania score, so I'm going to back that one again.
If and when. That's got some caveats. I know we both looked at the Albanian goalkeeper, Berisha, plays for Lazio. I was quite impressed with him. The footage that I saw, lots of punching clear, so maybe expect that from him.
I think plays for is a quote-unquote term, because my prediction was that he would be on the move, because I think he only played 6 games this season, but will likely play more for another team if he has a good Euros.
Right. He had 10 games for Lazio. And then the right back, El Cid Hissaj, someone who actually does play for Napoli in Serie A. He's a tall right back he likes to hit a sort of long diagonal pass. So you could look for him to be hitting that for the likes of the striker whose name was so complicated I can't remember it.
Sokol Sikalecki.
Maybe for him to be running onto. I've got him down to make the UEFA team of the tournament. It's a big shout.
You're outside back, right?
Yeah, my right back. His name again is El Cid Hissaj.
I just want to make sure you haven't jumped on the Sokol bandwagon yet. It seems not. So that's at 9 a.m.?
It is. We've got to talk a little bit more about Switzerland, though.
Okay.
Because as well as Granit Xhaka, you've got Xherdan Shaqiri.
He's pretty decent.
You've got Mehmedi, who's sort of equally as dribbly as Shaqiri, someone to look out for. And then you've got our guy, Briel Mbolo.
Yeah.
We want him to start this tournament. It's going to be Seferovic probably instead, right?
Yes.
But at some point, everybody's going to get bored, and Briel Mbolo is going to come in for Seferovic.
And my interest in Briel Mbolo has been ratcheted up to 11.
Why is that?
Because he is
Manchester United.
strongly linked with a move to Manchester United.
Ooh.
As of today, it sounds like they are underway in terms of contract talks.
Interesting.
We'll see if that's real. I have a hard time believing that anybody is doing any sort of negotiating or medical if they're involved in the Euros. So we'll see if that develops at all. But yeah, that makes him all the more captivating for me and the other, 60 million Manchester United fans or whatever their calculations were.
I'm not sure. Is that the number?
It's something. They did some crazy study, which I'm sure was totally accurate and not at all like, here, corporate sponsor, here's how much we're worth.
And then, as always with Switzerland,
Yeah.
look out, attacking fullbacks ahead. You've got Stefan Lechsteiner on the right. He will bomb forward at pace. He's a fast man, right? On the left, you've got, is it Ricardo Rodriguez?
Ricardo Rodriguez, yep.
He is also very interested in getting forward and getting involved.
And we have to bring him up. I'm legally obligated when it comes to Switzerland. 2014 World Cup, Fallon Barami.
Yes, watch out for... I mean, he's only ever done it once, but watch out for Fallon Barami getting fouled and getting up and keep going.
Yep.
He may do it again.
He
Maybe
cannot be
just
deterred.
does it once every 2 summers. Yeah?
That works, yeah.
Fallon Barami. He'll be back in my heart.
There we go.
Okay, second game in the day. You get a short break after Albania, Switzerland. Maybe get some early lunch. And then you get, at 12 noon, again on ESPN, you get Wales versus Slovakia. It's exciting to see Wales back in international tournaments. He says as if he's ever seen Wales in an international tournament. I was not alive in 1958.
Oh, no?
Not even close.
Well, yeah, and if you want a more detailed preview or discussion of all of these teams in both Group A and Group B, you can find our previews that we did earlier in the month or at the end of May. I forget when it was at this point.
It was one of those two.
Yeah,
but we went deep on Wales, and we went into... we'd actually read the same Wales Online article where Chris Coleman had talked about his formation and tactics for each game in the qualifying process. And essentially, they adjust their tactics to each opponent, right? But the base of it is a back three, then a 4-man midfield with wing-backs, then the 2 attacking midfielders, which are Aaron Ramsey and Gareth Bale, who sort of have freedom to find whichever space they want, and then Hal Robson-Kanu, whose only task is to run and run and run and run and run and run and open up some space.
And maybe shoot, but mostly run.
Mostly run and open up space to try and open up holes for Bale and Ramsey to get into. We were really into the idea of Wales as a team that works to its strengths. It's all about their high-profile players, parentheses S, because you can maybe include Ramsey. But also those guys are not luxury players. They are doing their job as well.
I love the idea of how Robson-Kanu scoring a goal and going over to celebrate with Chris Coleman and him be like, "Excuse me, do you see your instructions here? I believe it says run and run and run and run and run. Do you see shoot on there, sir?" It's like, but I scored. Doesn't matter. But yeah, so how Robson-Kanu is a man to watch. Obviously, Gareth Bale, a man to watch, as you pointed out, because it seems like the team is not necessarily built around finding him opportunities and finding him space.
It's not built around that, it's built for that.
It's built for that. And then the opportunities that present themselves when other teams adjust to that tactic, because then you have 5 people sliding over.
Yes.
It's like, haha, we stopped you, Bale. Oh, there's 3 guys running through.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think that's the thing. Yeah. So you'll see Martin Skirtle putting some blocks. If you see how Robson-Kanu pulling Martin Skirtle out of the back 4 and Gareth Bale running into that Skirtle-sized hole, then you'll know that Wales' plan is working.
And tomorrow morning, you'll know that I got my prediction point if I come in celebrating when my wife asks me, who's that? Because that was my prediction, because she would ask me, who's that, in reference to Marek Hamšík. And it is...
Is this his playing style, or is this his hairstyle and appearance?
As I said in the preview, yes. It's both.
Have we had this conversation already?
We have.
Okay.
And the thing that we didn't actually talk about, which I think now we probably should have, because it is pretty interesting, is that it does seem like both of these teams on paper and in the superficial coverage are one-man teams. It's basically Gareth Bale versus Marek Hamšík. Both of them were by far their team's leading scorers. Yeah. They're their talismanic goal getters. Before
you offer a counter-narrative, I want to say it's not that.
I mean, yeah, you're not wrong. It's just obviously with that, it becomes a little bit of a disservice to say that these two teams who went through qualification, found their way to this tournament, are both pretty good sides. Yeah. Are like just one-man teams.
So maybe the matchup to look out for then, because it is about Marek Hamšík for Slovakia. They would admit that. It's about getting him sort of to make those late runs into the box, getting him charging around midfield like he does. He has endless energy. I think it's about the matchup between Marek Hamšík and Joe Ledley.
Oh, I can't wait.
Nickname Deadly. Joe Ledley will smash you. Joe Ledley is a mean man with a big beard. We said he's the Nat Borchers of Wales.
I love him.
He's got the same beard as you as well, yeah?
I think he's going to dance after this game.
Did Joe Ledley dance?
Yeah. Basically when they qualified, he did a little Joe Ledley dance. Yes. And then I think a Welsh television station asked people to send in their videos of them doing the Joe Ledley dance so they could have a whole supercut of everybody doing it.
But Joe Ledley, I think, keeping track or at least competing with Marek Hamšík is worth tuning in for. Like, even if Gareth Bale wasn't playing, I'd get up just to watch that.
Even just from an aesthetic standpoint of like the mohawk with the tattoos, the skinniness of Hamšík, the giant beard and the giantness of Joe Ledley.
So one has elongated the top of his head and one has elongated the bottom of his face. So between them, they've got like one really big head both ways.
It's a 1 4-foot long head.
Yeah, it's like an Easter Island head. And then you've got my man, Ashley Williams. I'm really convinced that Ashley Williams is going to have a standout tournament. I'm even more into Ashley Williams after reading another Wales Online article where he explained the nickname and personality type of every single Wales player, right? Remember this?
Do you remember any of them?
That's how I know that Joe Ledley was Deadly. I know that Gareth Bale is Baleo. And I know that... who's the young striker? Is it George? I think it's George Williams. Ashley... they have the same name? Maybe. There's a young striker named George, and Ashley Williams' description of him was... he's not very clever. I don't know how he's managed to live this long.
I'll say this, I appreciate...
Aaron Ramsey was Rambo, that's the one I forgot.
I appreciate that they haven't all gone with, like, Giggsy, Skullsy, Bestie.
Exactly, that's why it's good, right?
Bexy, yeah. Although it just sounds like maybe they've just added O to the end of the name. Yeah. If you've got Rambo and Baleo.
Baleo. I think it's like the Baleo diet.
Yeah, I was going to say. That or it's one of the clans from Braveheart. I think that's the Baleo clan. But either way.
I think the whole Wales team is on the Baleo diet. And then, at 3 p.m. Eastern on ESPN, once again, it is England versus Russia. We will not be previewing that in this show because we put out a whole, 25-minute show earlier today going deep down on England versus Russia, having a go at picking an England lineup, not based on which players are the most popular, not based on any cynicism about Wayne Rooney, but based on how Russia play and how we think England should match up against that. So I'd encourage you to go back, listen to our England-Russia show.
There we are.
There we go. And there'll obviously be much more Total Soccer Show in the very near future as we review all of these games and all the Copa America games. Because we also have... Obviously, this is all the same podcast, but you may have just found this Euro 2016 podcast. We're essentially covering Copa America in the US and Euro 2016. We're going to keep them separated. We'll have Copa pods and Euro pods.
Much like The Offspring, we're going to keep them separated.
The Offspring?
Yeah, that's the song. You got to keep them separated.
I do not know.
Oh, quit being a child of not the mid-90s.
I mean, I am, but in a different country. It was more about Oasis and Blur in my time.
Yeah, I think yours is better.
So there you go, Tyler Rockwell. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Joe Grove, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We hope you'll stick with us through the Euros. We'll be here every single day.